we did have I got a question from a friend of the channel that he wanted to ask about your musical side of things.
Okay.
The person who's asked it is Captain Sensible. I don't know if you've. He's a friend of the channel, and he's asked a question about the music.
Of the channel.
Yeah.
Yes.
The question is, he says, Justin, how often do you usually polish your trumpet?
If you're in the UK or the EU, don't forget I have a code for you guys, Smelly10, that gets you 10% off at executiveshaving.co.uk, a fantastic place not only for shaving products, but some amazing affordable fragrances. Check the link out.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today it's time for another episode in my new series, my 5 most loved fragrances. And we've had 2 great guests so far and another fantastic one here today. So the guest today is the fabulous Justin Copeland, the smooth, suave and sophisticated musician and fragrance reviewer who's got a fantastic following and a fantastic channel. The channel name is, just to make sure I get this right, it's Justin Copeland is the name for the channel now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just under my name. I mean, my brand is Stay Fresh Productions, but you'll find me under my name.
Okay, so it's the official channel name is Justin Copeland on the YouTube search, but you're known as Stay Fresh Productions.
That's right.
Okay, so welcome to the show, Justin. Hello.
It's a pleasure to be here, Dan. Again, like I said, I had seen your conversation with Clements, and it was a lot of fun. And I mean, I didn't see it long before you asked me to do this, which I just thought was so serendipitous. I'm like, what in the world? And so I'm honored to be here.
You were high on my hit list, and I'm really glad. I'm very grateful that you've agreed to do it as we're just kind of coming out of the festive season here. And I'm very grateful that you've given me up some time here on a weekend. So before we get into the video, so the subject of the video, for any viewers who don't know, is we're going to ask Justin to share with us his 5 most loved or cherished fragrances. So the 5 that perhaps mean the most to him. Not necessarily the best 5 smells in the collection, but we would hope many of them will smell pretty good too. So before we do that, let's find out a little bit more for any viewers who don't know, and indeed perhaps some details, even if you know his channel, that we haven't heard before about Justin. I won't ask anything too probing,
Whatever you want.
Yeah, I'll hold you to that. So you may regret that. Now, first of all, whereabouts are you in the world? I know you're in the States.
Yes, I'm in the state of Oregon, which is known, the area I'm in is known as the Pacific Northwest of the United States. So the northwest corner, not too far from Canada, honestly. Just next state up is Washington, and then right above the border is Vancouver, British Columbia.
Right. Okay. So you were experiencing a kind of winter not dissimilar to what we maybe have over here in Northern Europe too at the moment.
Yeah, it's very rainy, very gloomy. You know, for almost a decade, I lived in the city of Chicago,
right,
in the Midwest, and that was, you know, real winter, sub-freezing temperatures, snow, blizzards, all of that.
Wow.
And this does not have any of that. I've
That's
only
good.
been here about 2 years, and I'm already loving it just for that reason alone. So.
Good. All right. And how are things over there with the general kind of pandemic situation? What's the situation for you at the moment?
You know, it's manageable. It seems to be somewhat homogenous among a lot of different regions. You know, everything is not completely shut down. The essentials are still open, as we've talked about. But in terms of, you know, I feel very fortunate with my work. Most of my work is from home. I do all my teaching virtually, and obviously creating YouTube videos is virtual by nature. So I feel very grateful for that. So I'm actually doing fine, but I know there are people who aren't. There are people who are struggling, and the end of this couldn't come sooner, for sure.
I am with you on that
Yeah.
100%, but I'm really glad to hear that you're doing okay. Okay, now, of course, many viewers will be aware that you are I guess it's fair to say first and foremost a musician, and the trumpet is your instrument. So, can you just tell us a bit about that and your career? I know you do some teaching as well, but you're also a composer and you have a fantastic music career, which is kind of your main thing in life before the fragrances came along. So could you just tell us a bit about that, how long you've been playing the trumpet and what you're up to now with it?
Sure. Yeah. I've been involved with music for maybe 25 years now. I started with the piano. At the age of 7, I played that until age 12. Well, I still play piano, but at age 12, I started studying trumpet. And trumpet has been my main instrument ever since. So went to college for it. I'm finishing a doctorate in music right now in trumpet. And yeah, I mean, I grew up in California. That's my hometown. So I did a lot of performing there when I was young and moved to Chicago for grad school. And that is really what kind of grew me as a musician and as a professional, was being on that scene. It's a big world there in
Yeah.
that city. So had a great time there. Met a lot of great musicians, grew a lot myself as a musician. I've recorded a lot of music with friends of mine and other kind of professional ventures here and there. And yeah, I do compose. I've been writing music since I was in high school. I still have yet to truly record my own music. I have some things here and there, but I don't have any official studio albums. I have people asking me all the time, but that is in the plans at some point. And yeah, so right now, I'm in Oregon. Before everything locked down, I was performing quite a bit, at least a few nights a week. Play a lot of jazz, but play almost anything else really. Yeah, that's primarily what I'm doing. And yeah, teaching is a big part too. I've been doing that for a long time. I'm teaching part-time at 2 universities right now.
Oh, wow.
But performing is, that's my passion for sure.
Yeah, and that of course has been hit, but it sounds like at least you've got plenty of other things on the go that you can do without the physical performing in public stuff. So that's good to hear, because I know a lot of musicians have really been hit hard this year, haven't they? So good that you're doing okay. And is there any place, I'll put a link in the description, if there's one place people should go if they wanted to check out a bit of your playing, anywhere you can recommend?
Yeah, I do have a kind of an unofficial album out there. I did a compilation of a bunch of live recordings a couple years ago. So it's not a studio album, but it's still a lot of fun. And it's on Spotify. It's on all the major platforms.
It's on Spotify. Okay,
Apple
great.
Music and whatnot. And then, so that's out there. And then along with that, under my name, under all, in all the platforms, I also put out a single not long ago, just a few months ago. In fact, it was the song that I had submitted for Scent Explore.
Oh, okay.
I actually submitted that as a single, so that's out there on the webs too. But
Awesome.
Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Google, whatever is convenient for others.
Okay.
You can find it anywhere.
So, for example, on Spotify, if we just search Justin Copeland.
If you search my name, you should find me. And if you need more details, you could search for Live at the Iron Post, which is the name of the live album.
Live at the Iron Post. Okay, brilliant. And the single what's the name of the single?
The single is called Here All Along.
Brilliant. I heard the thing that you did at Scent Explore, and it was beautiful. So I highly recommend people check that out. Excellent stuff.
Thank you.
Okay, so fragrances. Let's get on to that subject then. So you've got a fantastic YouTube channel, and we'll find out how long that's been going, but it's kind of similar length of time to mine, I think. But my first question that I asked to all the people who come here is how, why, where, and when did you become somebody with a higher than normal level of interest in fragrances? Were you always a little bit into them, or if not, at what point did this become a big deal in your life?
Yeah, it's a great way to put it. Higher than normal. Yeah, I would say I've been fascinated with just the simple idea of smelling good since I was 11 or 12 years old. So I've been casually wearing something here and there since I was in middle school. Obviously, at that time, I had no knowledge nor interest in knowing more about what I was actually putting on my body. But, you know, the idea of smelling good and people like finding you appealing for that reason was always fascinating to me. But it wasn't until, you know, maybe 5 years ago when, you know, over time, I've had a few kind of signature fragrances here and there. I wore Acqua di Gio for a while. I wore Chanel Allure Homme for a while. I even wore a David Beckham fragrance for a long time in college. And coming out of that era, I would call the Beckham my like final era before I got into things. I was looking for something new, but I didn't want to go into my department store because I didn't want to be assaulted by a sales associate. So I just said, you know what, let me go on YouTube and just do a search. I think I searched cologne. Like, yes, the most basic thing.
Yeah.
And who do you think is the first person that showed up when you type in anything with fragrance? Jeremy himself.
Yeah.
I was going to say you, right?
No.
No, you weren't too far along though.
I knew it was going to be Jeremy. I knew it was going to be Jeremy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, his enthusiasm, his charisma was just palpable through the screen. And I mean, it blew my mind, first of all, that people were making videos about fragrances. That alone, I'm just like, it just sealed the deal that every niche that you can imagine under the sun has a following.
Yep.
And so that was incredible. And then what really put the nail in the coffin for me was just the basic idea that fragrances can be composed from raw materials in nature. I literally, as long as I can remember, I just assumed like, oh, they just put a bunch of chemicals together. And now I'm glad that's not really the case. I mean, you do have synthetic materials, obviously, but it was just like, oh, you look at the back of the box and it's like, oh, chemicals. That's what makes fragrances. But I never thought that they were actually, at the very least, trying to resemble natural smelling ingredients. And that blew my mind. So that is what kind of put me down the rabbit hole to start doing some research and just learn more about these fragrances. And then simultaneously, I was diving deeper into YouTube. So I was coming across Carlos and Cody from Drac Doc and Steven and yourself, actually, and several other people. I think, do you remember Killafrags? I think he lives in Wales. Hilarious guy. He still uploads every now and then, but I used to love his videos too.
I remember the early days of his channel.
So it was from that point on. I spent about a summer just watching videos. I probably watched over 1,000 YouTube videos in like 3 months. And over that time, I started to acquire some of the fragrances people were talking about and things that were getting hyped. A lot of designer stuff, you know. And by the end of that summer, I had decided, I'm like, you know what? I want to try this. I want to try making videos. I didn't have any goal in mind. I didn't have any expectations. I just thought I'd give it a try, mainly just as a challenge to myself. And I was thoroughly surprised when people were actually watching my videos and subscribing. And then the snowball got rolling. Yeah,
I like it. Okay, makes sense. Yeah, I'm very similar to me actually. It's a very similar thing that I had a particular kind of signature scent, and it kind of ran out. I'd been buying it for years, Chanel Allure Homme Sport, and I just decided, it's time to change up a little bit here and buy something different this time. And literally like you, I just thought, oh, well, because I just used to watch YouTube in general for a lot of other stuff. So it was just a go-to place. I wonder if there's any videos about what's the best fragrances. And you suddenly discover not only are there some videos, but there's a whole community and a world of it. And you think, oh, wow. I'm sure probably other things I dipped into, but not got into so obsessively. But for some reason, this one dragged me right in. So very similar, and good to know, isn't it, that the YouTube world influences so many people to get into this hobby now. Okay, brilliant stuff. And the channel has been going since was it 2016?
It was like autumn 2016. And
and you've done fantastically well. I think you're up to 32,000 and something roughly. Subscribers.
And I think we're pretty much comparable at this point in terms of, again, starting point. You may have started maybe the summer of
I
that
started
year?
in the spring of that year,
Oh, the
March, I
spring.
think. So
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
did you have a little break when you went away for a while from YouTube?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was uploading consistently until maybe the spring of 2018. And then I moved out here to Oregon, and it was a big transition. And I took 6 months off, with no real intention to return. But now that I'm back, I don't plan on leaving for a while. Just because it's just even more fun now than it was before, I think.
Excellent. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
your videos are absolutely fantastic. And of course, naturally, everyone can find the link, if you don't, for any reason, know Justin's channel, in the description. Well worth checking out. Huge variety of fragrances on there, and just always a great, easy to listen to. Everyone talks about your smooth voice and all that. I'm sure you should do voiceover work or
I'd
something as a
love
little
to. Yeah,
sideline
I'd
work.
love to.
Hey, we'll have to look into that, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really, really good channel to check out, guys. Okay, so let's get stuck into the sort of main thing that we're doing for this video. So this is your 5 most cherished fragrances, or most loved. And there's no particular rules about, what the reasons are, but we're going to go with 5. Any order you want. What's the first one, please?
Sure. I decided to order these up basically chronologically. And as you had kind of said, these are fragrances that, and they're not perhaps my most favorite, but they do have some kind of special tie to either me now or me in the past. So first one up is actually Tommy Hilfiger for men. This fragrance is special because I actually never wore this early on, but when I was a kid, I was, maybe 9 or 10. I remember having a good friend of mine who was my age, and me and my brother would go to his house for sleepovers, and he had an older brother. And I remember, like, we'd always go over on a Saturday night, and as we were arriving, his brother was always leaving for a date or something, and he was like the cool older brother, like, oh, Andrew, and he would always come out of his room smelling incredible. Like, man, I want to smell like that, And it wasn't until maybe 2 years ago, I just happened to pick this one up on FragranceNet for like $20, just because. And one thing I need to mention, at the time, when I was like 9 or 10, smelling this off of my friend's brother, I didn't know what it was. I just knew it smelled amazing, but I never knew what it was. I picked this up off of FragranceNet, and it came in, I smelled it, and I'm like, and all the memories came back. I'm like, this is it. I had no idea. It was a total shot in the dark. I had forgotten about it, but I got it here, and then I just realized, like, oh, that was what I was smelling all those years. And and I love it. And, I do have a nostalgic tie to it for that reason. It's not a spectacular scent, but it's also no chump. I mean, Alberto Maria's composed this one, and it smells great. It's a stunner, really. It's really nice. Very aromatic, has like a cactus note and lavender, apple, mint, and it's really nice. Very fresh.
That is a fantastic. I love that. Yeah, I mean, so you just picked it up just sort of because it's a well-known fragrance and it's quite affordable, isn't it? So you probably just thought you'd give it a go. But it was only when you smelled it that the smell must have been. It's that trigger of the memory. You were sure that's exactly what you smelled, because it's so right. That's incredible. Okay, brilliant. Love it.
Yeah.
All right. Great first choice, and a very good fragrance that shouldn't be overlooked. A lot of people say some good things in reviews about that one. What is the second choice then, please?
Yeah, this fragrance, this is L'Homme from Yves Saint Laurent. This was the first, I would say, the first fragrance I purposefully went out and purchased once I started my fragrance journey. I went in and I bought it retail, which at the time was silly, but I didn't know about the gray market or anything. I went into a department store, and I already knew some fragrances I wanted to smell because I had been watching videos, and I smelled this one and I just fell for it immediately. And I remember like looking the sales associate in the eye, and I was like, this is so elegant. And she was so freaked out by that. She was like, yeah, it's good. So I'm like, here. So I gave her my credit card. I bought it right there. And I still love it to this day. It's, I don't wear it all that much. It's been a while, but I have gotten a lot of wear out of it. It's just real easy to like, fresh, kind of creamy, a little sweet. It's like a beautiful balance of all the appealing aspects of a fragrance without being too generic. It does have a little bit of something special. There's some ginger in here. I think that sets it apart. But yeah, definitely my first like real purchase of like a designer fragrance that I had heard about and then went and bought.
Excellent. Okay, yeah, great choice. Very versatile. Great choice. And was it in any way influenced by? I remember Jeremy Fragrance used to say it was the ultimate fragrance when you were meeting your girlfriend's parents for the first time. Or
I'm
something.
pretty sure. Yeah.
You'd seen that, do you think?
Yeah, I know I had seen him talking about this at least a couple times before, and I do remember him saying that, which I'm like, that does sound like a great reason to buy it. So let me go buy it.
Yeah. Well, say what you like about Jeremy. We both remember him saying it. So he's obviously clever at putting an image in people's heads. Totally. Well, I don't have that one actually, but when I have tried it, I really do like it. So maybe I need to get a bottle. Okay, 2 crackers so far. Yeah. What's number 3, please?
This one is probably the fragrance I'm known for on YouTube, and it's John Varvatos Vintage. Yeah, I didn't plan on creating so much hype around it, but that's just kind of what's happened. I still think it's a stellar fragrance. It is fairly unique. It has this gentlemanly kind of almost retro appeal to it, but it doesn't smell like your grandfather or anything like that. I do think an older man or a younger man can pull it off. This is one I heard about from Steven. It was a random top 10 video. I don't even remember what it was. And he happened to mention it, and no one else was talking about it at the time. And I just took note of it. I'm like, John Varvatos. Okay. And I was in a Sephora, and I saw it there, and I smelled it, and I did not expect to like it. I'm like, this is going to be, bland. And I was really surprised. I'm like, whoa, at least off paper, I was really taken aback. So I took home a sample, wore through the sample, and not long after that, very coincidentally, the girlfriend I had at the time bought it for Christmas for me. That same, like literally a month later, I opened a package. I'm like, wow, how did you know? And I've loved it ever since. This is one of the few designer fragrances I have, along with L'Homme, that I've basically had since I started and have not gotten rid of or anything like that. It's stayed in my collection this whole time. I still wear it here and there. I maybe only wore it 2 or 3 times this year, but I still love it.
Fantastic. Okay, John Varvatos Vintage, and that is. I was just watching your most recent video on your channel, actually, which viewers might be interested to check out because that was a Q&A, wasn't it? So it covers some of the same things, or a continuation of finding out a bit more about you that we're having in this video. So people might well want to go and check that one out. But yes, someone was jokingly suggesting that your answer to their question was bound to be John Varvatos Vintage. So you're very much associated with that one by people who follow your channel. Superb. Okay, so that's 3 down already. What's number 4, please?
Okay, number 4 is probably the most boring fragrance on this list, and it is Creed Aventus. But my experience with Aventus was pretty mind-blowing. It took maybe 3 days of watching videos for Aventus to pop up in a video. I'm like, what is this? And then all of a sudden, everyone was talking about it. And I was like, okay, well, I can't buy it. That's out of the question. Because just starting out, the idea of spending more than $100 on a fragrance, but now it's like, $150, whatever. But so I had already decided I could not afford it, but then I heard about Club de Nuit Intense, from Armaf. So I picked that up. I blind bought that instead, and I remember smelling it and that kind of is included in the list along with Aventus because that was my introduction to Aventus. I smelled that and I had a duality of thoughts. I was like, this is the strangest thing I've ever smelled, but I really love this. And I got a lot of wear out of it. I didn't end up keeping it because I did get Aventus. It was gifted to me not long after that. But I had it for about 2 weeks. And I was just before I actually smelled Aventus. And the whole time I was like, is this what Aventus smells like? This is so bizarre. And then I got Aventus. I got a sample of Aventus.
Right.
And then I'm like, oh, it kind of is like, but this is a little bit better. And then not long after that, I was gifted a bottle of this, which was totally by surprise. Unfortunately, as I've mentioned in some videos, my bottle has gone bad.
Oh no.
Yeah, this is a 2016 batch. And it was great while it lasted. Yeah, I mean, I was getting 10 plus hours out of it, very pineapple heavy. It was really beautiful, but somewhere along the way, I get maybe 2 to 3 hours now, and the citruses are just flat. It doesn't smell bad. It's just very two-dimensional.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I mean, even the juice color darkened over time. It used to be pretty clear. Now it's mostly yellow. So it must have oxidized or something. I'm not sure. I do have this now, which which is great. I'm glad to have a bottle of Aventus in my collection, but it is a shadow of what my old bottle used to be.
Oh, really? You think this is, just in case anyone didn't know, that was the 10th anniversary special edition, the 2020 edition.
That's right.
So that's your modern. And of course, the 2016 by the aficionados would be a sought after vintage now, wouldn't it? But such a shame. Yeah, I've got a bottle. I actually have got a 30 mil. I've got a modern 2019 bigger bottle now, but I have a 30 mil, and it's hard to tell, but I feel some of the sharpness of the opening has perhaps gone a bit. It's still pretty nice, but it's hard to tell whether that's a batch variation or if it's aged. But I find it's fascinating.
What was the batch of your 30 mil bottle?
It was a 15X01. I think it's either 15X01 or R01. But apparently it's one of the ones people say it's really good. I'm not, I don't know enough to know.
How do you feel about your 2019? I think I remember a video you did, but I can't remember what you said about the 2019.
Yeah, I'm really happy with it. I mean, I think even since then, people have said at some point in that year, things changed a lot and it's not as good. And mine is a bit before the big change that some people don't like. So apparently it's kind of one of the good ones of the last, it's still in the quite good era, but not mega vintage, not a 19S01. Quite frankly, I'm really happy with it. And I can't quite find the energy to get totally into the massive, analysis of all the different batches. But like you, the thing with Aventus is it totally was my first niche fragrance. I don't think I even really knew niche existed. I probably knew there were fragrances that weren't designer, but I didn't really think about it. So yeah, it was of course the main one that when you start watching the videos, people are talking about. And I just went to a department store and smelled it. So unlike you, I smelled that first. It must have been a bit weird to smell Club de Nuit first. I'm surprised you persevered and still. But I kind of like Club de Nuit, but it was it's a weird way round of doing it actually. But yeah, it totally blew my mind. I'd been taken in by the hype, and it smelled just on this card that I kind of put in my pocket and took home and kept smelling it, and it seemed so magical. Now that, of course, sadly, once we discover so many niche fragrances, the thrill's never quite that big again, or not for me anyway. Like it seemed so amazing. And now we sort of talk about Aventus as, it's that rather mainstream, not so exciting niche fragrance. But back when you first discover it, it really is exciting, isn't it?
Totally. Yeah, it was like you. It was, again, kind of my introduction into niche. There was a couple, when I got Aventus, there was a couple others I was getting into at the same time, but this one definitely had the biggest impact.
Yep, you got to hand it to it. Okay, no, good choice really, because it's been so influential on so many people in getting interested in this hobby. So I think that's 4. So it's down to number 5.
Yes. So the last one I would say I acquired. I mean, this one doesn't really count. This is my newest out of these, but I'm counting it with Aventus. But this is Dior Homme. Now, the reason why this is the original, not from 2011, but based on the 2011 reformulation of it. I got this bottle summer of 2017. The interesting thing about this one is that when I first smelled it, like I smelled this pretty early on in my journey. I went to a Sephora, I sprayed it, I hated it. It was rancid to me because it was so different. And it just smelled like powdery grandmother, and it just wasn't. I'm like, how could I wear this? Where would I wear this? How could I be around people wearing this? What would they think of me? And I remember spraying it on the card in Sephora and smelling it and being so embarrassed that it was like in the air, and I'm like, oh, I don't want people to associate this with me, so I had to get out of the area. It was so bad, and I never came back to it again until that. Let's see, that it was just maybe a year and a half later that I was actually on a cruise with my family on a cruise ship, and they had a fragrance store on board, and I went in with my dad, and I was just eyeing the bottle. It was just like staring right at me. And I'm like, you know what? It's been a while. And in the meantime, I had still seen so many people raving about it. I'm like, you know, let me see if my opinion's different. I sprayed it on my hand, and that was it. I'm like, okay, this is the evidence that tastes do evolve. This was the evidence right there.
Yeah.
I didn't buy it right away. I was like, okay, this smells really good, but I'm going to give it some time. I'm going to walk around a bit. Let me see if the grandma smell comes back. And it never did. I'm like, this is a beautiful iris, leather, lavender, cacao. I'm like, no, this is fantastic. So I went back like 2 minutes before the store closed, bought it, and have had it since. And now I absolutely love it. I think it's a timeless classic. I think it changed the game. It totally, added a tangent to what a man's or a masculine fragrance could smell like. It's phenomenal. So really special to me now. And just a complete, 180.
Yeah.
Just total polarization with that.
Wow. Yeah, I like that turnaround. I think that's the first big turnaround anyone's done in their list. So that's really interesting. And of course, just in case any viewers don't know, that the main kind of thing with that one is the use of an iris note, which some people say is a kind of almost a waxy lipstick note,
yes.
Because I believe iris used to be used in lipstick or something. So it has perhaps feminine connotations in a lot of people's minds, but I totally agree. It's a modern masterpiece. Do you prefer that then to any of the flankers, particularly maybe the Intense or Parfum version?
I actually have never owned Intense. I've been meaning to get a bottle. At this point, I think you can still get the pre-2020 bottle out there here and there. I'm interested in the 2020 because I hear it's not that bad, but I'll probably get a bottle at some point. So I can't speak for Intense all that much. I had samples back in the day, and I did enjoy them. I do have a bottle of Parfum, and I love it.
Oh, you do? Yeah.
But I just get more wear out of this. This is a little bit more versatile. It's a little bit more transparent. So I can wear it in the daytime, nighttime, a little bit more casually if I want to. Parfum, I feel like you got to dress that thing up, otherwise it'll wear you.
That is it's a beast, isn't it? Yeah, very strong.
So I'd say currently this is probably my favorite one out of the line.
Okay.
I actually did recently smell the new 2020 Dior Homme, which obviously is not related at all to the lineage that it's had. But, before smelling it, I didn't smell it when it came out. And all I saw was everyone just like, this is terrible. This is a travesty. Why would they do this? And so I was going into it thinking this is going to be horrid. And I smelled it. I'm like, okay, it's not the original, but it actually smells nice. And I had a decant. I put on a few sprays. I went and saw my girlfriend, and she went crazy over it. I'm like, oh, well, that's some points. Okay.
That's for something. Absolutely.
Yeah. I enjoy it. I definitely prefer the original.
Yeah.
I think the current one is it's not going to stand the test of time because it's trend writing more than anything. It's fresh and clean and woody and citrusy, sexy. And this is just, anyway, that's that.
A unique creation. Yeah. So just in case any viewers don't know, in 2020 Dior released, or was it recently anyway, they released a fragrance, almost the same packaging, called Dior Homme, but it doesn't have the waxy kind of thing. It's a completely, or pretty much a completely different scent. So quite why they did that, we don't know, but I guess it's all to do with money and marketing. So it was obviously deemed that was going to be a better seller. So fantastic choice, though. Totally with you that is a really, really special and great fragrance. So thank you for those 5 incredible picks and sharing all the information. about yourself as well. Really great to have you on the channel. I'm going to be looking out for the rest of your output this year. I think you're pumping out. I think you said more like at least a couple of videos a week now, or maybe three. And
trying to do at least 3 a week at this point.
Always loads of different stuff, and I think you've, apart from the reviews and the list videos that so many of us do, there's some different stuff on there too, like the recent Q&A video. So if people are looking for a different kind of thing here and there on a channel, great place to go. Just one last thing, we did have I got a question from a friend of the channel that he wanted to ask about your musical side of things. Okay. The person who's asked it is Captain Sensible. I don't know if you've. He's a friend of the channel, and he's asked a question about the music
of the channel. Yeah. Yes.
The question is, he says, Justin, how often do you usually polish your trumpet? I was quite interested. I'm interested to know the answer to that one. It's a
sensible question.
Yeah.
Not very often, I gotta say. Okay. Especially during quarantine, no one else is. Often enough. How about that? Often enough.
Okay, it's well looked after, as it should be. Okay, good. Thank you very much for clearing that up. It's been a huge pleasure to have you on the channel, guys out there. Hope you enjoyed the video. More to come, and remember, whatever you're doing in life, let's project. Bye bye.
See you.